Welcome to the tutorial for the Sum tab of the Budget to Actual monthly report. This tutorial will help you understand your unit's report of actual expenditures compared to the budget, as well as your overall spending status for the year. The report will be sent to you by the accounting team 2 to 3 days after the close of the month, so contact them if you haven't received it. When entering the spreadsheet, be sure to enable content and click Continue to any prompts. The Budget to Actual report is an Excel sheet with 4 tabs: Actual Payroll, Payroll Forecast, Transactions, and Sum. The Actual Payroll and Transactions tabs will be updated by accounting, so you will not need to do anything with these tabs. The Sum tab is broken up into 4 sections: Actual Spending versus Budget up here on the top, Statistics here in the middle, What If in the middle below the Statistics section, and the Budget section down here on the bottom. These buttons on the side are for whether you want to show or hide the Statistics and What If sections. They will be showing by default. You may notice some differences in these sections. This is because certain details needed to be added to correspond to the policy changes that occurred during this fiscal year. Let's go over the sections from the top down. The Actual Spending section is where actual spending is documented per month based on the categories in your county's budget. Columns A through C list budgeted categories and their corresponding abbreviations. Column D lists the full amount budgeted in each category. Columns E and F are new columns that are for any changes to the budget. Column E is where any approved budgetary changes are listed. Column F shows how these budgetary changes have affected the budget and what the new adjusted budget total is. Column G will show what percentage each category accounts for in the total budget. Columns H through T are broken up by the months of the federal fiscal year, October to September, ending with a 13th period, which represents any September expenses that were not processed until after the fiscal year has ended. Each month of the year will be filled in with the amount spent. These may be blank, depending on the time of the year, signifying that spending has not been completed yet. Column V totals the amount that it was actually spent so far in each category. Columns W and X are for encumbrances. An encumbrance is an expense that has not happened yet but is planned to happen in the future. Let's go over an example. A teacher is hired to teach 5 physical education classes over a period of 6 months. She will be paid $50 after each class is completed. If she has taught 2 classes already, your actual expense would be the $100 she has already been paid for the 2 classes, and your encumbrance would be the $150 that she will be paid at some point in the future after classes 3, 4, and 5 have been completed. Column W is for the encumbrances that occur when a purchase order is active in U-Access and has not been fully paid out yet. Column X is the encumbrances based on what was entered in the What If section. Column Y is the amount that is left after counting the encumbrances, both planned and actual. Column Z represents the percentage of unspent funds. Underneath the buttons on the right, you will see the 10% variance box. The grant allows us to move up to 10% of a unit's budget from one category to another, as long as it has been pre-approved by AZNN. Any dollar increase in one category requires a decrease in another category. This box represents how much of the 10% variance you have left to move. The statistics section here in the middle is meant to help you optimize and view your spending percentages per month. It is for information purposes only. This section compares your actual spending for the month with what is considered optimal spending for the month. Our sponsor prefers that spending is spread out evenly throughout the year instead of spending the majority during one month or quarter. This section shows an even distribution of expenses over the course of a year. The numbers will not be completely equal due to payroll being processed differently in certain months. Since the university processes payroll on a bi-weekly basis, 26 paychecks per year, there are 3 payrolls in 1 month instead of 2, twice a year, accounting for the larger number in some months. When the university closes out their fiscal year on June 30th, some days from June will not be paid out until July, but will be expensed for June. This accounts for the larger number you see in June and a smaller number in July. These payroll anomalies are what causes the spikes in the graph on the right, which is a visual representation of the comparison between actual and optimal spending. If your actual spending is less than optimal spending, your numbers will be red. If they are at or above the optimal spending level, they will be black. The What If section is where you enter any expenses that you plan on making but haven't actually made yet. It is meant to be used as a reference to see how a new expense can affect your current budget. You may notice several changes to this section that were made to reflect the new grant policies. Each column is broken up by budget categories and contains 5 pieces of information that need to be filled out: a general description of the purchase, a drop-down list of all the categories of purchases within each budget category, a subcategory based on the previous categories selected. This will auto-populate for every budget category except non-capital and travel, a sub-account number which will automatically populate, and a dollar amount. When you fill out the description of purchase, you will see other columns turn red. This is to signal you to fill them out. You may notice the sub-account description box turn red in some columns and not others. This is because non-capital and travel are the only budgetary categories that have subcategories in sub-accounts. For those 2 categories, you will need to select an option from this drop-down list. For all others, you will not need to, as it will auto-populate. Any entries in this section will appear in its category in the actual spending section in column X as an encumbrance. The last section is the budget section. This section lists out each item in your budget and how much was budgeted for that item, along with the expenses that were made in each of the items throughout the year. There will also be a column showing any approved budget changes. You will notice the budget section overall has become much more detailed to account for the changes in grant policy. If you would only like to view the items that you have budgeted for, click the Show Budgeted Lines Only button up at the top of the section. If you would like to view all items, regardless of whether you have budgeted for them, click Show All Lines. You can filter this section as well to find specific lines, if necessary. You will see a yellow box at the bottom of your spreadsheet. This is mainly for reference, but if you see any numbers other than 0, contact the accounting team. This concludes the tutorial for the Budget to Actual Monthly Report Sum tab. If you have any questions, contact the accounting team.